Man, that is smooth. And all with just one light pass with the 120 grit on the random orbital sander. So how do I achieve those results? Well, there's two things really: accurate machining of your materials and accurate joinery. And in this video, I'm going to show you the equipment that I use to build doors like this with just that sort of accuracy. So the first thing we're going to do is just establish a nice straight edge on these rough sawn boards. From there we'll head on over to the bandsaw and we'll resaw these boards to the width that we're after, and we're going to try and, as much as possible, cut out all the sapwood. Okay, so when you're machining material that is on the cusp of the thickness and the width that you're after, there's a few little tricks on the jointer to ensure that you do still end up with the thickness and width of material that you want once it's all dressed. Now this is quite bent, this piece. I'm sure that you can see exactly how bent, and it is 24 millimeters and we're aiming for 20 millimeters. So we should be good, but there is quite a bit of a bendy part to this. I'm just feeling for the grain here, and I'm going to put the piece, the majority of it, where the bow is down, I guess, or up if you like, in the middle. So you can hear 1, 2, 3 spots there. You can actually see here, here, and here, just this last piece. Now I'm not pushing down too hard. Just this last piece here now. That's got it. So I'm taking 1/2 millimeter off at a time, so a very small amount, because I don't want to go too much, obviously. So there it's 22 millimeters, 22, we should get it. Obviously these parts are much thicker. That's almost 24 still in the middle, where I just took a very, very light skim off to get that flat, but we have ended up with a nice flat piece in both ways. This piece was even worse than the last, and I haven't quite got the bow out of it, and I'm pretty much almost on size at this end, but I have got a little more to play with up this end. So what I'm going to do to to fix this is simply start my cut with the end of the board on the outfeed table, just on the outfeed table. Now, be very careful, obviously, that you don't hit the cutter head when you're putting it in, because you're going to be sort of lifting it up. If you dive in like this, then yeah, you could be in trouble. So I'm going to lift the guard up out of the way, and then come back, and then we'll start our cut. And that should maintain the thickness on that end that I'm after, and still get this rough sawn part cut or dressed out. So. Oh, almost there. One more cut, I think. That ought to do it. Might take one more. So that's ready for the thickness planer. Now, if we've done everything correctly when we've jointed our boards, we should end up with some really nice straight square dressed boards. So as much as I cringe at the cost of some of these Festool tools, I don't think you can be critical of the quality of equipment that they produce. This Festool Domino joiner does an incredible job. It's very, very accurate and produces a really strong joint with so little fuss. I'm just making up some quarter sawn black walnut doors here. These are going to get a rebate in them for a glass panel. So the joinery does need to be strong, and that's exactly what you'll get with this sort of system. Because these are only a 2 1/4 inch wide or 57mm wide rail and stile, there's definitely not enough room for 2 dominoes, obviously. I typically only use this in the tight mode, so the dominoes are quite tight. There's very little movement, but again, this thing is so damn accurate. I don't find I ever really need to put it on the loose tenon setting. So I'm not very well set up with this thing, but a clamp is probably all you need. That's all I use. So you might notice I'm using what they call a trim stop on the joiner. It came standard with my joiner, and once set up, it'll allow you to get repeatable, accurate results when you're doing small parts like these rails. So there you have it. Pretty darn quick and easy. And in my business, yeah, this machine makes a lot of sense, even at the price that you pay to get one. Now it's onto the shaper, and we're simply going to cut a lap joint, if you will, in the ends of the rails that will match up with the rebate for the glass. So with the Domino joiner, the mortises weren't cut dead center, they were about 1 millimeter off. So when cutting this lap joint, I need to make sure that I get the parts in the right orientation. Okay, so I've changed the setup on the shaper for the rebate on all the pieces. If you've seen my video on the sacrificial fence for the shaper hood, then you'll know what this piece of birch is in between the aluminum fences. If you haven't seen that, then I'll maybe drop a link in the description below. But to put it simply, it's a 15 millimeter thick Baltic birch piece, and it utilizes the safety bar guide system that you can get for this shaper hood. Typically I use it as a zero clearance fence, or a sacrificial fence if you will, and in this case I'm just using it to be able to back the piece as it runs all the way across the cutter head. Initially I thought I would set the power feeder up to run these pieces, but with so few pieces to run, I ended up just doing them by hand. This is a classic example of where these really cheap aluminum clamps come into their own. You just don't need much pressure when you're gluing these types of doors up. So, these really lightweight, cheap aluminum clamps are perfect. So I wanted to give you a close-up shot here of how I go about gluing the loose tenons in. I do use a piece of dowel to really spread the glue well inside the mortise, and making sure that all the surfaces are really well coated. With the tenons glued into the rails, I then just go and add a little bit of glue, and using a brush, I'll brush the glue on and again coat all those surfaces. But while this brush is a little ratty, it is still a very accurate way of getting glue where you want it and not getting glue where you don't. So it really doesn't take much pressure to pull the joint together. And with the tight setting on the domino joiner, the joints typically come together really fairly close to being spot on without any manipulation. But of course, you know, you will find you'll need to do a little bit just to get things dead on. I just use a fairly stiff spatula to scrape the glue off, and then I'll use a damp rag to really clean up the glue. And just one last tip, when you're gluing up doors like this and you're putting them aside, make sure that you're doing it in such a way that you don't introduce any twist into them while the glue dries. Now for each one of these doors, before I even started doing any of the joinery, I have matched the grain and figured all that stuff out. And then for each door, what I've done is used what they call a carpenter's triangle. And so this left-hand piece has one sort of part of the triangle. The right hand, the opposite, obviously. This top part has the top part of the triangle and the bottom part, the bottom of the triangle. And it just really makes it a lot easier to keep track of each of the parts. Obviously, then the other thing I've done is number each of the parts for each of the doors. So 1, 2, 3, whatever. And then with the triangles, it's really easy to make sure that you get the right parts in the right places, so that even if you mess up on, you know, marking out for one of your tenons, loose tenons, then you know, as long as it goes together the way the triangle is laid out, it's going to go together properly. Okay, so there you have it. All these doors have just got to be finish sanded, then have a finish put on them. They will all get glazed with a 3mm tempered glass, and that's what these glazing beads are for. They will get they'll be used, cut and used for glazing them all. So if you've made it this far, thanks for watching. I really do appreciate your time. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you've got any comments, drop them down below. I really like to read everyone's comments, and we'll get back to anyone that does leave a comment. So yeah, thanks again for watching. We'll see you in the next video.